The camera is on, so whenever you want.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. This is the team for Chaosium. We're really excited to be here. We'll just quickly introduce ourselves. My name is Michael O'Brien, also known as Mob because they are my initials.
Rick Mines.
Who is the president of Chaosium.
Jeff Richard.
Who is the creative director at Chaosium.
Neil Robinson.
Who is the CTO, CFO, and general brain. So there we go. So what we're going to do in the session today is, this is the What's Up at Chaosium seminar.
Quo Vadis.
Yeah. And we're going to have each person here on the panel talk about a different thing that we're doing in the organisation right now. And at the end, we'll have some time for questions and we'll do our best to answer them. But the first thing we're going to kick off with is I'm going to throw over to Rick, and he's just going to give us an overview about what is in the pipeline at the very end of the pipe. So it's going to be being extruded very soon. Over to you, Rick.
Well, we have a large number of things in the pipeline, but one of the things that we're very excited about in terms of not the way distant pipeline is that we want to have 2 special books come out for Christmas this year. And so we have H.P. Lovecraft for young readers, which is going to be, I won't say it's a children's book per se, but you'll notice it's in a certain style that some very classic children's books have been written in. Along with that, we're also going to have a new add to our product line, which is a coloring book for Call of Cthulhu.
For adults.
For adults. And so we're going to have those out as a special package you can get in time for Christmas. And we'll actually have them printed. They're actually, one of them's at the printers right now. The other one is going to be going to the printers next week. And so we'll be selling those probably at the end of this month.
So we'll do that, probably announce that just after Thanksgiving. Isn't that the rule for Christmas things?
Yes, just after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Start Christmas.
So in terms of Call of Cthulhu releases, we've got 2 that are coming out very shortly as well, haven't we?
Well, nothing says it's real more than actually having it real. We're going to, now that we're finally getting it into all of our fulfillment warehouses, and I'll let Neil talk about our warehousing and all that, because we're going to be selling Doors to Darkness with the 5 scenarios in it.
Open it up, though, to show.
And, of course, it's got the new look and feel of all of our books. And so it's a full-color hardcover, and it'll be for sale very, very shortly. Along with that, 15 years in the making, we have all 280-plus pages of Pulp Cthulhu. And so once again, it's going to be a full-color layout. It's going to be a hardcover, and this is pretty much the standard.
It's going to. It is a hardcover.
Yes. And this is our standard look and feel now for our books. And so we have, with those 2 books, if you want to hold those up for a second. This is the first time we've actually physically shown these to anybody. We're going to talk about these more in detail, but these are the 4 keeper decks that are one of the key Kickstarter deliverables yet to be sent out with Pulp Cthulhu and a few other things. And these took a little bit longer to produce than we wanted to, but we're going to be mailing these, Pulp Cthulhu, and other goodies out to backers. I'm going to have a full Kickstarter update probably by Monday, but these are some of the remaining big printed deliverables, because we want to get the Kickstarter done as soon as we can. And so these 4 keeper decks, they're kind of like moderate-sized tarot cards, but they really help the keeper with either characters, there's weapons, there's phobias, and unfortunate events. And so we have these keeper decks available as a good play aid. And so this is the only set that isn't at the printer.
So there's 4 in the set. So what's the story there?
I'm sorry?
There's 4 different packs. So what's the story there?
Well, as I said, they are. One of them is for curious characters to populate NPCs in the game. And then you have the weapons and artifacts, which are just quick stats for here's a shotgun, here's a Tommy gun, a lot of the classic weapons from the 1920s Cthulhu. And then we've got the phobia deck, which just explains all the maddening things that can happen to you when you run out of sanity, which happens sooner or later in every game. And then the unfortunate events deck just for odd things that can happen if you want to throw something in as a good plot twist or details. And so we're going to be selling these as a set.
Wonderful. I'm going to throw...
He's got one more, though, doesn't he?
You got more?
Yes, I do.
Oh, yes, I was going to ask.
Now, we are not just all about Call of Cthulhu. Our latest HeroQuest book, The Coming Storm.
And open it up to
And
show.
it has the new look of HeroQuest, which is kind of a nice Bronze Age feel. And so it's a color layout. It's hardcover. And this is Volume 1, the Red Cow Volume 1 of The Coming Storm.
Oh, and we just happen to have the principal author in the room here. Ian, how do you feel now that you've got this as a physical artifact?
It's very good. I was saying to somebody else, my teenage self, his dream was have a book with the Chaosium logo on the front cover. And by delaying the delivery of this book for a sufficient amount of time, my cunning plan will...
This is the first Gloranthan book that has had a Chaosium logo on it for way too long.
Rick and I have talked about getting this book out for a long time, so it's good to finally see it out.
And Volume 2 is currently in layout, and it will be out in hopefully just a few more months after we get it printed.
Right.
But this one is in the warehouses. We're going to be selling it very, very shortly.
So I mean, you can use this one as a kind of sandbox setting, and then the campaign covers 1618, 1625, so it takes you through the whole period.
So, Neil, I'm going to throw over to you now. Okay. And can you talk a little bit about the way that Chaosium has set up our fulfillment processes? Because they're a bit different to the way they were done before.
Sure, we'd be glad to talk about it. Made a lot of changes, I'm sure. I guess the first thing, and it's happened a while, is we basically merged, and I would say from a sales perspective, we've retired Glorantha.com. It's still there for content, but all the sales is over at Chaosium.com. That's let us do a few things like centralize our processing and fulfillment. To do that, how many here are from the UK? Or from anywhere in Europe? Well, you can now get your order shipped from the UK. So we have that done finally. We have a few more products we have to move into there, but most of our catalog is in the UK warehouse. We have some Australians here, including on our panel, and we actually have a couple more, and we have Australian warehouse as well, and then we still continue primarily in the United States. We're actually moving to using a more of an automated system, so right now to be able to track the ordering, so you'll get a better idea of the status, and I'm hoping, given the integration software, that you'll have, instead of just getting an email internally from Bang or from Kicksto that your product is shipped, you'll actually be able to log on and see it transition, as opposed to us saying the order's complete because we sent it to the fulfillment house. It's more like the fulfillment house can then back update the catalog from that perspective.
Can you also just briefly talk about bits and mortar?
All right. Well, I guess it's more than just a bits and mortar, right? Are you familiar with the bits and mortar program? Anyone here? Yeah. It's very, very much, probably, I think, initially done in America as well. So let's go take a step back. We made a decision a while ago to really start saying, now we're going to include PDFs when you buy the physical product. The issue isn't what platform you buy it on, it's that we want you to play the game. And a lot of people find it really easy to take their tablets and have the PDF and then enjoy the physical book. Well, if you buy the book on our website, we provide that for you. We've done all that, and we're migrating a few things more over to do that. Dustin's working on that. But we've also decided that we want to go in the Bits and Mortar program, which is allowing, if you buy this at your local gaming store to support them, we will also do the same thing and give you the PDF as well.
But we do have a small ask on that, which is please get your friendly local game shop to sign up for Bits and Mortar.
Because obviously if they don't
If they don't participate, then it's a little bit more awkward just for everybody. We want to get you the PDF, no doubt, but it's much easier if you get your game shop to set it up. It's totally free to them. They can go online, get registered, and then they can give you the PDF right when you buy the book.
And you'll get it faster, and you won't be waiting, and we'll be able to leverage, the people doing on our customer service to focus on some other customer service issues.
I'm going to now throw over to Jeff. And Jeff, before we start talking about RuneQuest and some other things that are very exciting down the track, can you just give us a bit of an update about what's happening with 13th Age in Glorantha?
Yeah.
Because we're getting very close to that too.
13th Age, the manuscripts are done, writing is complete, editing is complete, it's in art production period, and once the art, and it is a big book. 13th Age in Glorantha is a very big book. And I see Robin laughing about
Is
that.
it a Rob Heinzel production?
Yes.
It's actually the biggest for us.
It is the single biggest book that Rob and Jonathan have ever written. And as a result, the art requirements for it turned out to be substantially larger than we initially expected. And so, but it's in the art commission. The character classes are going to be commissioned. There's Rachel Kahn, who did the art in Coming Storm, is doing the various character class depictions. So we have a whole bunch of pieces that are coming in from her. Sam Wood, who's done a lot of work for, I think for WotC, is doing the adventure scenario sections. I've got Corey Trago-Erdner, who did some work for the guide, is doing a lot of the creatures. So there's, finally the art, we're beginning to see the feedback on, or the results on that. And then once the art is complete, we go over to layout and get this thing put together. The other book that's done is the source book is done. And actually, I've got a copy of the source book text here, and that's also in our production, art and maps.
So just to clarify, that's the Glorantha source.
The Glorantha source book.
And just say
and
a
that's
little bit
system
about that.
neutral, although we usually lump it with 13th Age because it was part of the 13th Age Kickstarter. The Glorantha source book is Glorantha. It's not 13th Age, it's not RuneQuest, it's not HeroQuest, it's like the guide. And the source book fills, first of all, it's a lot shorter than the guide. Massively shorter, but
lighter.
And much lighter. But it also fills an important missing piece that wasn't in the guide, which is a lot of the core mythology of Glorantha. And so the source book handles a lot of the myths that pretty much the guide just kind of skipped over, and that it provides finally in one place the complete red line history of the Lunar Empire that's been updated and expanded on, and a tremendous amount of very useful
Can I step in one
material.
time here? Because
Yes.
you mentioned this word a few
Many
times.
times.
And I'm going to bring this in. How many people are familiar with the Guide to Glorantha? Probably most. How many own it? How many are interested in owning it but don't have it because it's sold out? Okay, we got some news, right?
Well, it's going to be shipping from the printer in about 2.5, 3 weeks.
Yes.
And it will be sold in all of our warehouses, so it'll have a little bit more reasonable shipping, as much as you can ship about, 8 kilos of books at a reasonable price. And it's going to be a slipcase set this time. Same books, same printing, but we're going to offer it in a slipcase, the 50th anniversary slipcase.
Very exciting.
Glorantha.
We have another project which is very close to completion and going to be having its art assignment done soon, and that's for our BRP line, and that is Mythic Iceland. And we just happen to have the author of that sitting in the audience as well. Here's Pedro. You may be familiar with Mythic Iceland, the first edition, which was published, how long ago now? About
4 years ago,
4 or 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. This is actually a new edition. And Pedro, do you want to say just a couple of words about what's going to be in Mythic Iceland 2?
Yeah, so the main new thing about the second edition is that it's got all the rules in it, so you no longer need to have the separate rules volume like you used to have before. We've got new magic system.
Seder magic.
The Seder magic, the shamanic witchcraft of the Norse sagas. The other magic system in the book, the rune magic, has been completely reworked, and it's just as flexible as before, but much easier to do, easier for the GM to manage. We've got new scenarios, new.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Well, in a moment, let's talk a little bit about the companion book that's coming out at the same time.
Yes. So we've got now the book has become so large that we have to split it in two volumes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's fine, because in actual fact, Mythic Iceland is not just going to be a book.
It's a line.
It's actually a product line. And Jeff, do you want to talk just a little bit more about?
Yeah, so
conceptually there?
so the Mythic Iceland will be coming out along with a companion campaign arc of scenarios, and I think it's 4 or is it 5 scenarios?
Well, we're going to have in the first volume that comes out of the main book 3 scenarios, and then we have another 3 coming out shortly in the companion book.
Yes, and so then there's 2 books that were in our production, a core rules book with basically everything you need to know, need to have in your hands in order to run Mythic Iceland, and then a campaign scenario book, and then there's a follow-up. Pedro's already working on the follow-up campaign scenario book, and then after that is.
Well, we've got a large campaign which takes you all over the known Viking world, so you're gonna run several raids across Europe, and you got to visit Vinland and Greenland, and there's a large tragic arc, like the best of the sagas. So I'm very excited about that campaign as well.
And the reason we call it, it's pretty clear. This is a product line. This isn't something, and I remember last year there were questions about this of BRP as a line. We don't view BRP as a line. BRP is a related family of rule systems. Mythic Iceland is a line. And let's face it, the Icelandic sagas is one of the core inspirations for most of fantasy literature. I mean, it's something that has never really been. There's been bits and pieces of it exploited, in things that RQ3 Vikings, and one of the great, in my opinion, as a gamer, not even as a publisher, my biggest criticism about RQ3 Vikings is, okay, this is great. Where's the next book? I want to keep doing this because you have an unlimited possibility for adventuring in the Viking Age. And Pedro and I have been working forward on that, and this is going to be a full-fledged line that we will continue to do, and we have some ideas on how to expand it out further to make some other possibilities that Chaosium hinted at 35 years ago, but never did much with.
Mm-hmm. So I'm now going to say a few words, because another thing we've been working on is our board games. And we have a couple of board games that are in production, and we have one board game in particular which is almost ready to be released, and that is Kahn of Kahns. And that is our Gloranthan family game. It's a card game, and it was designed by the German board game design genius Rainer Knizia. Dr. Rainer Knizia, who I'm sure that many of you are familiar with. So we were very excited to be able to work with Rainer on this. We met him actually last year for the first time at Essen, and negotiated about how we might work together. This is the culmination of the first part of that project. We have another game that we're working on with him as well. This is a fun family game, and it's actually set in the plains of Prax of Glorantha, and it's a game all about stealing cows. Now, I can see a couple of people in the audience who played it last night, and I hope you guys had fun. Yeah. And we are hoping with the very cute art, the fact that it's a game that's quite easy to learn, it doesn't take long to play, we think this could be a very popular game to play with the family, and we hope, like perhaps the King of Dragon Pass computer game, it's a gateway drug to more and more complex things to do with Glorantha. So if you would like to play Kahn of Kahns, we've got some demo versions here, and I'll be carrying that around, and I'll be more than happy to demo the game with you. We have another game that we're doing with Rainer Knizia, which we can maybe talk about at next year's KRAKEN, and hopefully we'll be able to hold that one up as well. The other game that we've been working on is the new edition of CREDO, and we did play a playtest version of that here last year. that is the next project that we're seriously going to be working on to get finished once we get this one out the door. We'll be doing this as a Kickstarter, and the great thing about the tribes of Prax, of course, we'll have the 5 great tribes in the game, and then we can add the Rhino Riders, the Enchanting Unicorn Women, the Paver Survivors. They can all be a stretch goal as we go further up in the Kickstarter. So that's an exciting thing coming up very soon.
There's one other board game that you should mention that we have in development still.
Oh, actually, yeah, this is a big one.
This is a big one. This is a very big one, and we're still in the development stage of this. But Chris Klug and I have been working, and are continuing to work on the new Dragon Pass game. And who all remembers the old Dragon Pass? Yeah. So what we want to do, what we're doing. Not what we want to do, but what we are doing is we are taking the play experience of that game and bringing it forward to modern styles and sensibilities of games. So not something that takes 6 to 12 hours to play with thousands of chits that are written in that almost computer language code of classic war games from the 70s, but is something that is card driven. It takes about 2 hours to play. It has the same degree of strategic complexity as the old game. Keeps in the role of magic. Introduces actually more of a diplomatic element to the game. Expands the map out so that it's easier to support multiplayer game. Which was a weakness of the old one, is it really only worked for 2 players. The 3-player version of it, if you were the 3rd player, it always kind of sucked for you. And one of the key things that Chris is working right now is working with our cartographer Daria to get a area movement. We had been playing around with a point movement system. You know, that kind of spider web system where you move along the road, but the map ended up looking really ugly. And so we're now doing it to an area movement system, and Chris is also trying to make sure that the gameplay is getting down to 2 hours or less as a standard game, because in this day and age, it's very hard to get people to play weekend-long games.
And that is actually one of the things we're still working on with the game CREDO as well.
You play fast.
We're making it Speedo Credo so that we can get that game down.
Wasn't it supposed to be Drain Pass prototype here?
No. There's not here.
No. Chris and I talked about that, and because we're moving to an area movement stage, and we haven't finished the map on how that would be, that we were really concerned that if we printed that all out on something that was a moving target, in terms of how the pieces move around before we had we'd gone through the first round of internal testing on that we had the possibility of people going, oh, this doesn't seem to work, and it's because we're showing it off too early in the process on that. Now the core combat and the roll of the cards and such, that's actually done, or more or less done. But a key part of the enjoyment of any war game is moving your stack around, and if we can't really show that off at an adequate level, it's not worth showing off the prototype.
So we are keen to show off new things and things that are in development that are ready to be shown, and of course the ideal place to do those is at conventions and events like this one. Neil, can you talk a little bit about the different conventions and events that Chaosium is going to be seen at over the next year or so?
Well, I don't know if I go the next year, but I can say that right now we're actually at 3 different events at once. We are in Portland, Oregon. We have a team there doing the HP Lovecraft Film Festival, supporting that, Cthulhu primarily. We are also working at GeekGirlCon. I always get it backwards, which is my hometown in Seattle. where we're basically going there. It's a very much a dynamic, really a fun, friendly game. But these are larger conventions, and of course we're here at KRAKEN, so 3 in 1. So for a small company, that's a lot to kind of organize. The next one is at Essen. We will be at Dragon Meet.
That's in the UK.
So that's all
December.
So those are the big ones for this year. Next year, obviously.
PAX Australia as well.
Oh, I forgot about that. PAX Australia, a lot going there. And then the next year, what's the big ones? Obviously, we've signed up for Origins.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to commit to go to
UK Game Expo.
UK Game Expo. Obviously, Gen Con. And Rick,
We're also going to be going to Dragon Con.
why? What happened to Dragon Con?
Because Call of Cthulhu won in the first inaugural awards Best RPG at Dragon Con.
So that's not only a prestigious award, I believe it's also an incredibly heavy award.
It's incredibly heavy. It's blown glass. It's beautiful. It's black. When that came in the mail, it was awesome. My kids just can't stop picking it up and run around the house with it.
What could ever go wrong? Speaking of awards, you may also be aware that Chaosium has a fiction line, and we publish different things, a lot of it related to weird fiction and stuff related to the Cthulhu mythos. That fiction line has been running now for about 20-something years, but in the last few years, the processes to get books out have not been the most efficient in getting out to reviewers and so on. With our consulting editor, James Lauder, we've been looking at fixing up those processes so that we can get a proper pipeline for our fiction to come out in a timely fashion and get out to reviewers and get out to distributors. And that's something that we'll be doing going forward. We'll be making some announcements about the new fiction that will be coming out over the next year. We have a few books out at the moment, which you can see on our website, and very excitingly, one of them, Casilda's Song, which is an anthology of short stories based around the King in Yellow mythos, was nominated not for 1 but 2 World Fantasy Awards, and they are actually up for, I think they're going to be announced later this month at the World Fantasy Convention in Atlanta. And is it Atlanta or is it maybe Columbus, Ohio?
I think it's Ohio.
It's Ohio.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Actually, the Dragon Con was Atlanta. Sorry. So we're really hoping we'll get those awards there. But even to be nominated is a pretty big deal. We're very excited about that. So the fiction line is another thing that is, I think, going to be coming to more prominence going forward. One of the things we'll do there is we'll be publishing proper guidelines for people who might be interested in contributing to that side of things. And we've got the weird fiction, other sorts of fiction that we might be looking at as well as fantasy, and also maybe even Glorantha fiction going forward. Speaking of Glorantha, I think we've got to go back to, I think, one of the most exciting things that is going to be coming out from Chaosium, and that is, of course, RuneQuest. That's probably the biggest project that we've been talking about internally ourselves. And Jeff, would you like to share what we're doing?
Why don't I grab the drafts?
Okay.
I think they're all right here. So, as you all know, we're relaunching RuneQuest. And one of the things, so this, yeah. Now this looks bigger than it actually is because it's printed single-sided. So don't be too disturbed. It's actually about a 280-page book. But this is it. This is our internal RuneQuest playtest book, the most recent version, which is why it's called Germany 2016. And this has been myself, Jason Dural, Chris Klug, Mob, and Steve Perrin have all been heavily involved in putting this together. We're at about the, what would we say, about 95... 96.
I don't ever want to say percentages.
No, in terms of the text. In terms of the text.
For this book, yeah.
Yeah, for this book. And so we're already entering into art commissioning on this. Jason is doing. Jason's got some final cleanup bits, the final bits of editing, and finishing off all of the examples of play. One of the things we really want to make sure is there's lots of detailed examples of the rules as played out, and then all strung together through a narrative like in Rurik Saga. So you basically can watch how this narrative, and then examples are drawn from the narrative, essentially a character's arc through the game. And there is we are very, very happy with the new core rules. One of the things we're all committed to do, though, is when we release that, we don't just want to release out a rules book. We want to release out enough so that when this comes out, there is stuff for you all to play with, that there are plenty of scenarios, there's lots of additional material. So there also, let's just jump in. There will be a full proper RuneQuest Glorantha bestiary. This is already an art production, and it is going to visually look a tremendous amount like the Peterson Guide to Cthulhu Mythos. So we've brought in Corey Trago Erdner, who is doing about 40 pieces for the bestiary, and I'm extraordinarily happy with finally having a very, very pretty collection of Glorantha monsters. And it's written, this is the book, if you decide that I really want to play have a Morakanth player character, there is enough material in here that you can have your Morakanth player character, you can have your Green Elf, you can have your Dark Troll characters. That's not going to be in the core rules, because that ends up making the core rules just an absurdly big book. So both of these are already in the early stages of art being commissioned for them. And so what we're now working on here is there will be a Game Master's book, which is filled with interesting things that a Game Master will want to have, but isn't necessary in a core book and isn't necessarily what you want your players to be thinking of. And this includes rules on chaos, rules on illumination, the Red Goddess cult and how it functions, so that you can have actually have the Red Goddess be something that is interesting potentially as players. Red Goddess Priestess is an ally of the players, or an aspirational thing for the players, or as really, really frightening adversaries for the players. Material on hero questing, and a gigantic collection of Dragon Pass encounters that are all fully statted up. Because one of the things with RuneQuest, when you're GMing RuneQuest, is if there's combat, you sure as heck want to have a statted up template there. Because there's nothing more frustrating than your players going and saying, "Yeah, we're gonna start a fight with those trolls," and trying to wing it. Because RuneQuest combat is not something really that works well for just winging it out of the air. And this is one of the great things about Griffin Mountain and Borderlands, is they provided encounter templates so that if you as a GM wanted to sandbox, you could do a sandbox game. And that'll all be in the Game Master's book. So it looks really thin, but that's mainly because those haven't been finished yet. And then what our primary writing project right now is the Dragon Pass campaign. And this is a 1.5-year campaign arc for RuneQuest that starts shortly after the Dragon Rise and carries forward about 1.5 years, and it's done as seasonal adventures. And it builds a lot on material that Greg had put together for RQ2 back in 1981 through 1983, which actually was called the Dragon Pass campaign, and never got used, never saw the light of day, but ended up being extraordinarily influential on the development of Pendragon. And so we're basically going back to before Pendragon and pulling in a lot of concepts that you'll say, well, this is all just used for Pendragon. And it's actually, no, we're going back to material that Greg originally put together for RuneQuest that later got used in Pendragon. But one of the really nice things is that I at least always found as an RQ, when playing RQ3, that you didn't have a good feeling of pacing when you were running adventures. There wasn't an ebb of flow. You would have a scenario, and then it's, what are the players require X number of hours to do training, or X number of hours. You've got to spend your 90% time on such and such. And as a result, everything got really compressed together.
It didn't mirror how you think it would happen
in
the world.
And so this is a campaign that basically goes through and really ties the characters into the overall setting. It lets the characters go, and we
Talk
have...
about the different types of things characters will do in this.
Oh yeah, they'll be... they'll go to the Stinking Ruins and do an adventure in the Stinking Ruins. They will participate in 2 major Gloranthan battles, and we will have the battle rules for RuneQuest, which is in the Game Master book, isn't set up to be basically a war game rules where it determines which side won. And this was a conceptual problem we all played around with for a long time. Is usually battle rules in RPGs are macro war game rules where you figure out who won the battle. And unfortunately, that doesn't really tell you very much about what your players are doing in the battle, and it deprives. It really deprives one of the core fantasy elements. And let's face it, I mean, battle is core to the fantasy genre. The Iliad is a story of a battle and a siege. The Icelandic epics, Battle of Clontorf is a major part. I think there's 3 major battles in Egil's saga. I mean,
Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings, or battle and battle. And what we've done is we've made the rules oriented towards what are your characters doing in this battle, and what is their decisive event for them as combatants in the battle. And suddenly it makes it all, first off, much easier for the GM, and a heck of a lot more fun as players. So there'll be 2 big battles in the Dragon Pants campaign, and then there also will be a revisiting of an old classic RQ2 location.
Surprise me later.
Yeah, which will surprise you later on it, but it's also one that is an awful lot of fun. So this one is the one that's the furthest from completion in terms of writing, and the writers involved in it are myself, Mob, Ian, Chris Klug, Ken Rolston are the people that are contributing on that one.
And Jason.
Yeah. It's because he's not here. He's
running a game.
He's a game.
And did you mention that you have a chance to play something like this here? Is that true?
We did.
A play test?
Oh, yeah, Andrew.
Oh, yeah. And, he's even in the green t-shirt.
The guy wearing the green t-shirt.
Tell us all about it, Andrew.
We've got the Bull's Ear, or as I prefer to call it, Mad Cracks Fireball Road. We've got the Fireball clan in the Sambari tribe up in the Quibbin Mountains, and it's a 4-hour game because we'll spend the first hour doing some of the really interesting new character generation stuff. Most of the characters are statted, just the interesting background and magic choices, and then we've got 3 hours of actually running an adventure. I've run a Gen Con, I've run it in Australia, it's a heap of fun.
It's a hoot.
It's probably already sold out, but...
there might be 1 or 2 places left.
Excellent. So look, we're just about at the end. I'm really pleased because we had a list of all the things we wanted to talk about and I've crossed them all off. But I'm sure that you have some questions about things that you'd like some answers to as well. So we've got about 15 minutes left. If anyone has a question, we'll do our best to answer them. Anyone got a question? Yeah.
Are the battle rules for RuneQuest that you were talking about going to be along the lines of the Book of Battle for Pendragon, or is it going to be sort of a different system?
It is a different system. I mean, I'm a gigantic Pendragon fan. I think Pendragon is, from a rules perspective, it's Greg's masterpiece. However, and initially when we were playing around with battle rules, that was what we were... I was extraordinarily heavily influenced by that. But there are certain assumptions in Pendragon Battle that don't translate out to Glorantha. In Pendragon Battle, everyone is what?
A knight.
Yes. What's the role of magic in a Pendragon Battle?
I don't think there is one, if I remember right.
What's the role of people with long spears and big shields that are actually designed to take down knights?
Well, they should be crushed underfoot, aren't
Yeah,
they?
exactly. And so there's a lot of things as we started playing around that for Glorantha, it just didn't work. And then also, it is when you start taking the RuneQuest combat into this. In Pendragon, you can have the Pendragon combat is quick and ultra lethal, but also ultra quick because it's two knights running at each other with lances. That doesn't work so well if there's a good chance your characters are Yomalian pikemen standing in a phalanx formation. And so we moved much more towards what are the characters themselves doing. And now what that also means, though, is that the GM has a lot more control over, well, who won that battle? What is the overall big picture dynamic of the battle? The players can have some involvement in it, but that's not really their story. Because rarely do you have in any battle, a handful, 4 or 5 people, decide themselves the result of that particular battle.
Any next question?
Questions? Yeah.
I've got the microphone to ask one. You've had about a year or so now sort of getting used to running Chaosium, and obviously got your plans together. And notice you've got these new sort of intro level games like Kahn of Kahns, and you've also got a lot of detail for like the old guys like ourselves who've been playing for decades, and sort of taking us back to the roots of Greg's old dusty manuscripts you pulled out from the past. So what's your sort of strategy for people that are gamers but maybe sort of like not quite old grognards like ourselves perhaps, or not quite young kids, but that kind of middle ground of people that are perhaps coming through World of Warcraft and D&D, that sort of stuff? How do you make your games at Chaosium appeal to that sort of market?
I think there's some really good things in doing it. Number one, I'm going to say that from our perspective, a lot of our games, we're taking advantage of the fact that the rise in women who like role-playing. So we're trying really hard, a lot of work to make sure that this is a game that works for grognards, as it were, but also works for people who are not as interested in combat or understand the lethality of it. That was one of the problems sometimes. People fight too much. You take a D&D game, and a D&D is based on a dungeon crawl. Obviously, that's what it's modeling first. That's what you want to play. RuneQuest is actually, we think, this one's actually easier to start up if we have a lot of work on the character creation to try and speed it up to play. And also remove a lot of the word, like take who played fatigue in RQ3. We want to remove rules if rules are just there for the sake of rules. Take encumbrance, right? You don't want to track how many iron spikes you have. You want to have an idea if the guy's heavily armored. So a lot of the game work we've done is doing that, and I think we learned a lot from HeroQuest to bring it in, but make it crunchy enough and to make it more of, I would guess, considered simulationist, so that people who have a background in these games can play it. Because we think it's a great opportunity to get D&D players to play another game that they can work on and have a different feel for.
I'll also add that another thing that we've done is we've set up organised play, and you may have seen we've done that for Call of Cthulhu. We ran a campaign over 6 months.
Anyone here play that?
Anyone play that one? Okay, that was for Call of Cthulhu. It was played.
How many participants do we have?
We specifically aimed that at keepers, that's game masters, and we had over 1,200 keepers that were downloading that game and hopefully running that in game. Well, they were running it in game stores and in clubs, and you could run it at home, online, and so on. I would say from tracking it, we probably had at least 800 or 900 different games of that going on over 6 months. And that did involve bringing in people in game stores as a great way to bring in new players to a game. We'd like to do something similar with RuneQuest. We will.
We are setting up organised play for RuneQuest.
Yeah, we are. We've been talking about that this very weekend, actually, about how best to do that. The other things that we have introductory scenario. So Andrew talked about what he's created, which is actually called The Ears of the Bull. Andrew, you got the title wrong there. But anyway, he calls it Mad Prax Fireball Road. But we have a 1 hour demo scenario for Call of Cthulhu called
The Dead
Border.
Dead Border. Sorry.
Dead Border.
And we've actually got two versions of that. We've got a 1 hour version that you could actually play at a booth as people are wandering past at a convention. And we also have a 2 hour version. Rick, do you want to just quickly say what we did at Gen Con this year and what we plan to do next year?
Well, Gen Con, they're wonderful people to work with. And they came to us saying that, hey, you're the new Chaosium, you really want to get more events and all out on the calendar. Well, they came to us and let us know that there was a 6,000 person wish list of people who wanted to play Call of Cthulhu at Gen Con alone.
Who missed out.
Who would have played in it if they had a chance. Even if that was, just half, a real number. So, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people. And so we added, we pretty much said we're going to run a game all time. We had 3 tables in a room, and we ran
a continuous.
We hired a director of organized play.
Yeah, director
full
of
time
organized
for
play, Todd Gardner, and because he's out at HP Lovecraft Film Festival this weekend. And so we ran more events at Gen Con this last year than we ran for the previous 5 years combined.
So this year at Gen Con, we ran about 80 different sessions.
We wanted to get to 100. We didn't quite
get there.
We're going to at least double that for next year.
No, you were telling me, Rick, you want to do the Indianapolis
500
and run 500 sessions next year. So part of that is...
You're going to really hold me to that, aren't you?
part of that is, in order to do that, we need keepers and GMs to help out. We have the Cult of Chaos, which is our organised play and keeper program. And we've had a lot of people sign up to that as well. At the moment, that's really had a focus on Call of Cthulhu, but we really Chaos is all-encompassing, as you know, so we really want to get our other games involved in that as well. And to keep people interested and incentivised and happy there, you got a time to harvest for free as the PDFs, and we let people in the Cult of Chaos know about things very early in the piece about the stuff as well.
We're also building a scenario library on Basic Role Playing Central, where we're going to have a lot of ready-to-play material. So when somebody does want to run an event, maybe they don't know what they want to run, they have a whole library of things they can choose from, be it 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hour. So it's not
tying that back to Gary, your original question. That's the sort of stuff we will also be doing with RuneQuest, and making that direct outreach to making the material available, accessible for new players who don't know anything about any of this,
including a RuneQuest quick start.
RuneQuest
that'll be the
Quick
first
Starter,
thing to come out, probably long.
That'll be before
months
everything else.
There'll be a quick start out there to get your feet wet in it.
Okay, questions? Yo.
Can you just give a brief update on the product schedule for the RQ2 Kickstarter?
Oh, well, we've got 2 additional editors that have come on, which has been one of the big bottlenecks, unfortunately, on getting those out. But when I get back from Essen, we've got 3 books that are really close to being done. And we're going to get not only Plunder and Rune Masters out, but we've switched the order a little bit because we want to get Solo Quest out, the Solo Quest companion of all the collection of all of them in one book. And then we also accelerated both Pavis and Big Rubble. Brilliant.
I'm actually going to think of one other thing that I didn't add to the list here that I did want to tell people about. You may have seen we've now set up on a site called Redbubble, a site that sells merchandise. So it sells T-shirts, mugs, posters, maps, notebooks, phone covers, and so on. So at the moment, what we've been doing is we've been finding Glorantha artwork, Call of Cthulhu artwork, Chaosium related stuff that we think people would be interested in owning. Probably the most exciting one of all of those, particularly if you're a Glorantha fan, are maps. And that's something that
You're saying it's not the Haniel iPad cover?
That's a pretty cool one too. Actually, a lot of people like the Gloranthan runes, so you can buy T-shirts with the Gloranthan runes and mugs. And
The maps is a good one for us because from a distribution perspective, there's a lot of people who want to have rolled maps. They're a huge pain to process, to deliver, to separate. They're horrible from a warehouse. I can't ship it with with books. So having something like that, Redbubble, their focus is they're built on that, and you get them. And actually, we got a whole set.
Actually, I have some. I'll bring them over to the workshop that I'm doing this afternoon. I have the target
but we think it's potentially a way to get you the maps cheaper. That we can deliver it. We could do it ourselves.
Speaking of RuneQuest Classic, one of the things we've decided to accelerate with Redbubble is putting all of the big poster maps from all, like Griffin Mountain and Elder Wilds map. We're going to have that available through Redbubble. Same thing with the Pavis big map, the Big Rebel map. We're going to have all those available on Redbubble.
And old books, we're trying to get a lot of it on print on demand Cthulhu as well. So if you want an old classic one, you could hopefully drive it there and get local shipping again.
Are the Pavis and Big Rubble the ones that were box sets? Are they going to be box sets, or are they going to be books?
No, they're going to just be books. Right. Boxes, unfortunately, can really be susceptible to damage.
I thought that would be the answer.
And so, with the RQ Classics, there aren't going to be any box sets. They're all going to be books.
Okay, we have time for one last question.
Okay, given the history, a little bit rocky of Chaosium, financial things and all that, I'm hearing all these huge lines and products that you have in play and all the commitment. And I know we aren't stakeholders, and you don't have to lay open your accounts and such. But what is your financial stability program for all that?
The chief financial.
That's why we have a CFO.
I can answer that.
Part one, you have a CFO.
So you're right. It's a big deal. It's a big deal for gaming companies. And I would say that in general, I'm going to use a term very common. We use it. It's called cash is king. And really what that means is you never want to make a decision on a product line, on a printing, on ability, but based on how much money you have in the bank. Because I can tell you, and Rick will tell you, we do the math a lot in terms of how we want to print. I ask you, the most important thing for a book to get the price down the most is to have a large number of copies. And the break point is like 5,000. If you have to do, and so we did this with some of the fiction lines, but prior you're doing a print-on-demand model. Well, if I buy something on a print-on-demand model and I get it done, it's going to cost me probably 3 times as much to do it. And I'm shipping it in smaller units, so that means the shipping cost is a larger percentage. And we eat that and then we send it to you. And if we send it to distribution, they've had it printed, shipped to us, then we ship it to them, small units, a couple of boxes, and all of a sudden we're making 50 cents on a book. That, you can't run a company like that. So what we've done is, we've been very fortunate, and that's one of the reasons, we're involved, is we did 2 things. We secured some extremely good financing that's better financing than I could ever describe, or we were blessed with. And plus, we took we did a major commitment as the Moon Design involved into Chaosium to do that. And we believe Chaosium has an amazing history. It's a wonderful company. It's a company we all grew up with. There's a lot of really good business models that was, sadly hampered at one point by cash flow. So we're saying that we can take that out of the picture equation for now, and then all of a sudden we can just leverage it. And I'll gladly talk a little bit more about it. But we have made a big long-term commitment to this company. We have people that have helped us do that. And we will. We're going to do better if we do some of the bigger bets, and it's a big risk we're taking, but we think we're going to do well.
So on that note, thank you very much for coming to the Chaosium seminar. I hope our answers have been illuminating in a Gloranthan sense. We're still here. We're in the
we're here all weekend.
We're in the green t-shirt, so if you want to come up and talk to us about anything else more specifically, we'd be more than happy to help. And if you have a look on the board, there are a number of other sessions and things. You've got something coming up.
Yeah, I've got the Glorantha writing workshop.
And you may be able to find out some more. So thank you very much.